There is a question that haunts the human experience more than almost any other, and yet most people never stop long enough to actually ask it. Are you truly happy? Not the kind of happy you perform for Instagram. Not the smile you wear at family dinners so nobody worries. Not the laugh you force in group conversations because silence would feel too revealing. Are you genuinely, deeply, peacefully happy inside yourself when nobody is watching? Because here is something that will shake you if you let it. The vast majority of people on this planet will leave this life without ever tasting real happiness. They will spend decades breathing, working, scrolling, achieving, and surviving, but they will never once sit down in a quiet room and feel truly at peace with who they are. And the worst part, most of them will not even realize what they missed until it is far too late to change anything. This is not meant to frighten you. This is meant to wake you up. Right now, today, before another year slips through your fingers like water. You see, the world has sold you a broken map. Since childhood, you were handed a set of instructions that promised happiness at the end of a very specific road. Get the grades, land the job, find the relationship, buy the house, earn the respect, collect the followers. And somewhere along that road, happiness would supposedly be waiting for you like a gift wrapped in golden paper. But you followed those instructions. Maybe you checked every single box. And yet, when you finally stopped to look around, that golden gift was nowhere to be found. The road just kept going and going and going. Why? Because happiness was never at the end of that road. It was never waiting for you somewhere out there in the distance. Real happiness, the kind that fills your chest with warmth on a random Tuesday afternoon, the kind that makes you close your eyes and whisper thank you to nobody in particular. That kind of happiness has always lived in a place most people forget to visit. It lives within you. In this video, you are going to learn 10 life-changing lessons that will help you stop chasing happiness in all the wrong places and start building it where it actually belongs, inside your own mind, your own heart, and your own daily life. These are not motivational cliches. These are raw, honest truths that most people only understand after losing years of their life to stress, comparison, and emotional exhaustion. But you do not have to learn these the hard way. You can start right now. And if you stay until the end, I promise you, the way you see your life will never be the same again. Chapter 1. Stop putting happiness on layaway. Imagine walking into a beautiful garden. The flowers are blooming. The air smells like jasmine and fresh rain. Birds are singing somewhere in the branches above you. The sunlight is warm on your skin. Everything around you is peaceful, alive, and beautiful. But instead of sitting down and breathing it all in, you pull out your phone. You start making a list of all the things that need to change before you allow yourself to enjoy this garden. The path needs to be smoother. The bench needs a cushion. There should be fewer clouds. The temperature should be 2 degrees warmer. The birds should be singing a different song. By the time you finish your list, the sun has already set. The flowers have closed. The garden is dark. And you never once allowed yourself to simply enjoy where you were. This is exactly what most people do with their lives. They put happiness on layaway. They tell themselves they will pick it up later, after conditions improve, after problems disappear, after the bank account looks better, after the relationship heals, after the career takes off, after the body looks different, after the kids grow up, after life finally settles down. Always after, never now. And this might sound reasonable on the surface. Of course you want things to get better. Of course you have goals and dreams and responsibilities. Nobody is saying you should stop working toward a better future. But here is the trap that catches millions of people without them ever realizing it. Waiting for happiness becomes a habit. And habits once rooted are incredibly difficult to break. You train your brain to believe that the present moment is never good enough. That right now is just a stepping stone to something better. That joy is something you earn later, not something you are allowed to feel today. And slowly, without noticing, you begin living your entire life in the future tense. You stop tasting your morning coffee because your mind is already at the office. You stop noticing how your child laughs because you are mentally rehearsing tomorrow's meeting. You stop feeling the evening breeze on your face because you are scrolling through someone else's vacation photos and wondering why your life does not look like that. The present moment becomes invisible. And since the present moment is the only place life actually happens, you end up missing your own life while being physically alive for every second of it. Think about how devastating that really is. You could live 70, 80, 90 years on this earth and spend almost all of them mentally somewhere else, planning, worrying, regretting, comparing, waiting, always waiting. And one day you wake up and your hair is gray and your knees hurt and your children have children of their own, and you suddenly realize that you postponed your happiness so many times that it eventually stopped waiting for you. Here is a truth that might sting a little, but you need to hear it. Life will never be perfectly ready for your happiness. There will always be a bill to pay, a problem to solve, a relationship to navigate, a health concern to manage, a fear to confront. If you keep waiting for all the storms to pass before you allow yourself to feel sunshine, you will spend your entire life standing in the rain with an umbrella you never open. The people who experience the deepest happiness are not the people with the fewest problems. Read that again. They are not the people whose lives look perfect from the outside. They are the people who learned how to find peace in the middle of imperfection. They are the people who said, "My life is not perfect, but there is still beauty here, and I refuse to ignore it any longer." Happiness is not a destination you arrive at after everything is fixed. It is a skill you practice while everything is still messy. It is choosing to notice the good that already exists instead of only obsessing over what is missing. It is deciding that today matters, not just tomorrow. It is learning how to hold gratitude in one hand and ambition in the other, without letting either one cancel the other out. So here is your first lesson, and it might be the most important one in this entire video. Stop waiting. Stop telling yourself that happiness belongs to some future version of your life. Stop postponing peace until conditions are ideal, because conditions will never be ideal. The garden is blooming right now. The birds are singing right now. Your life, imperfect and messy and complicated as it may be, is happening right now. And you are allowed to enjoy it before everything is fixed. Not later, not someday, now. Chapter 2. Stop handing the remote control of your happiness to other people. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you are holding a small remote control. This remote has one button, and that button controls your entire emotional world. When someone presses it the right way, you feel incredible, loved, valued, alive. But when someone presses it carelessly or walks away without pressing it at all, everything inside you collapses. Your mood crashes. Your confidence disappears. Your sense of worth evaporates like morning fog. Now, here is the question. Why are you handing that remote to every single person you meet? This is one of the most common and most painful patterns in human life. People unknowingly outsource their happiness to others. Their entire emotional state depends on how other people treat them, respond to them, notice them, or validate them. A kind message lights them up for hours. Being left unread ruins their entire evening. A compliment makes them feel like they matter. Being excluded makes them question their entire existence. And the cruelest part is that most people do not even realize they are doing it. They genuinely believe that their happiness depends on finding the right person, the right group, the right audience, the right amount of attention. They believe that once someone finally loves them enough, or notices them enough, or stays long enough, that hollow feeling inside will magically fill up. But it does not work that way, and deep down, you probably already know this. Think about it honestly. Have you ever been surrounded by people who cared about you and still felt lonely? Have you ever received the compliment you desperately wanted and felt the glow fade within minutes? Have you ever been in a relationship and still felt that quiet ache of emptiness in your chest when the room went silent? That is because no person on earth, no matter how loving, patient, or devoted, can permanently fill a space inside you that only you have the key to. People are not designed to be your emotional power source. They were never built for that job. Humans are beautifully imperfect. They have their own wounds, their own fears, their own limitations. They will forget to call sometimes. They will say the wrong thing sometimes. They will be too tired to be your anchor on the exact night you need them most. This does not make them bad people. It makes them human. But if your entire sense of peace depends on their consistency, you are building your house on a river and wondering why the floor keeps shifting. There is a profound difference between enjoying someone's presence and needing someone's presence to feel okay about yourself. Love is beautiful. Connection is essential. Friendship is one of the greatest gifts life offers. But none of these things should be the only reason you feel at peace. When they become the only source, they also become the only threat. Every silence becomes suspicious. Every late reply becomes rejection. Every small disagreement becomes an emotional earthquake. Some people enter relationships believing love will finally cure their loneliness, their insecurity, their self-doubt. And for a while it might feel that way. The butterflies are exciting. The attention is intoxicating. The feeling of being chosen is powerful. But eventually, normal life settles in. The butterflies slow down. The constant attention becomes occasional. And if you never learned how to generate peace within yourself, that old emptiness creeps back in. Except now it feels even worse because you expected this relationship to be the answer. The relationship was never the problem. The absence of an inner foundation was. Emotional independence does not mean shutting people out or pretending you do not need anyone. It does not mean becoming cold, distant or self-isolated. It means something far more powerful than that. It means learning how to sit with yourself in a quiet room and not feel desperate to escape. It means knowing how to comfort your own heart when life gets heavy. It means being able to experience a bad day without immediately needing someone else to fix it for you. It means carrying your own emotional weight with grace instead of constantly collapsing onto the nearest shoulder. When you build that kind of inner strength, something remarkable happens to your relationships. They actually get better because you stop approaching people from a place of desperation and start approaching them from a place of fullness. You stop silently demanding that your partner, your friends, your family members fill a void they were never meant to fill. Instead, you show up as someone who already has peace and simply wants to share it. That shift changes everything. You stop keeping score. You stop testing people to see if they care enough. You stop spiraling every time someone fails to meet an expectation they never even knew you had. You become lighter. Your love becomes cleaner. Your friendships become deeper because they are built on genuine connection, not quiet desperation. So take the remote back. Hold it firmly. Decide today that your happiness is your responsibility, not a burden you place on everyone who gets close enough to care about you. The people in your life are meant to add color to a painting that already has a canvas. But if you keep waiting for someone else to provide the canvas too, you will spend your life staring at a blank wall, wondering why nothing ever feels complete. Love people deeply. Appreciate people fully. But never again hand someone the only key to your peace. Because the moment they walk away, and sometimes people do walk away, you need to know that you can still stand in a room alone and feel whole. That is not selfishness. That is survival. That is freedom. And honestly, that is the beginning of the deepest kind of happiness most people never allow themselves to experience. Chapter 3. The war inside your head is the one you need to win first. Let me tell you something that might change the way you see your entire life. Most of the pain you're carrying right now is not coming from what is actually happening to you. It is coming from what your mind is telling you about what is happening to you. Read that again, slowly. Let it settle. Because this single realization has the power to free you from years of unnecessary suffering, if you truly let it sink in. Here's what I mean. Imagine two people standing in the same rainstorm. Same cold rain, same gray sky, same muddy ground beneath their feet. One person looks up, feels the water on their face, and thinks, I needed this. Everything has been so dry and dusty lately. This rain feels like the earth is washing itself clean. The other person stands in the exact same rain and thinks, of course this is happening. Nothing ever goes right for me. Now my shoes are ruined and my whole day is destroyed. Same rain. Completely different experience. And the only thing that separated those two people was not the storm. It was the story their mind created about the storm. This is happening inside you every single day, and most of the time you do not even notice it. Your mind is constantly narrating your life, and that narration is not always honest. In fact, much of the time, your mind is the most unreliable narrator you will ever encounter. It exaggerates threats. It minimizes blessings. It replays the worst moments on a loop while fast-forwarding through the beautiful ones. It whispers things to you at 3 in the morning that it would never dare say in daylight. And yet, most people believe every single word their mind tells them, every fear, every doubt, every worst-case scenario, every harsh criticism. They treat their thoughts as absolute truth instead of recognizing them for what they often are, just mental noise. Think about how much of your suffering exists only inside your head. How many arguments have you had with people who were not even in the room? How many times have you rehearsed a confrontation that never actually happened? How many nights have you lost sleep over a future that never arrived the way you feared it would? How many beautiful days have you ruined because your mind decided to replay a painful memory from 6 years ago for absolutely no reason? The human mind is like a television that never turns off. It keeps playing channel after channel, thought after thought, story after story. And if you never learn how to change the channel, or at least turn the volume down, you will spend your entire life watching reruns of your worst moments while missing the live broadcast of your actual life happening right in front of you. Negative thinking is one of the quietest destroyers of happiness. It does not arrive with a dramatic announcement. It does not knock on your door and introduce itself. It seeps in slowly, like water through a crack in a basement wall. One negative thought leads to another. One worry connects to a bigger worry. One moment of self-doubt spirals into an entire evening of self-destruction. And before you realize what happened, your mind has built an entire prison out of thoughts that were never even real. Overthinking is perhaps the most vicious form of this, because overthinkers are not lazy people. They are not careless or irresponsible. In fact, most overthinkers are deeply intelligent, deeply sensitive, and deeply caring people who simply cannot stop their mind from working overtime. They analyze every conversation. They dissect every facial expression. They replay every interaction, wondering if they said the wrong thing, made the wrong impression, or missed some invisible social cue that everyone else somehow understood. A friend does not reply to their message for a few hours, and suddenly the overthinker has constructed an entire narrative about being secretly disliked. A boss gives a neutral comment at work, and the overthinker spends the entire weekend convinced they are about to be fired. A partner seems quiet during dinner, and the overthinker lies awake until 2 in the morning, wondering if the relationship is falling apart. None of these scenarios may be real, but the suffering they create is absolutely real. The anxiety is real. The chest tightness is real. The lost sleep is real. The emotional exhaustion is real. Your mind does not need a real threat to create real pain. It only needs a convincing story. And then there is comparison. If overthinking is a slow poison, comparison is a thief that breaks into your house every single day and steals your gratitude while you watch. We live in an age where comparison has become almost unavoidable. Every time you open your phone, you are presented with a carefully curated highlight reel of someone else's life, their vacation, their body, their relationship, their promotion, their children, their kitchen, their morning routine that somehow involves meditation, journaling, a green smoothie, and a 5-mile run all before 7 in the morning. And your mind, that unreliable narrator, looks at all of this and whispers, "Why is everyone else doing better than you? What is wrong with you? Why is your life not like theirs?" But here is what your mind never tells you while it is busy comparing. You are comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's highlight reel. You are comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. You are comparing your worst insecurities to someone else's best performance. And that comparison will never, ever be fair. The person with the perfect vacation photo might be drowning in debt. The couple with the romantic anniversary post might argue every single night. The entrepreneur celebrating their success online might be dealing with crippling anxiety behind closed doors. You do not know. You never know. And yet your mind uses these incomplete snapshots to build a case against your own life. Comparison does not motivate you. It robs you. It takes a perfectly peaceful afternoon and fills it with dissatisfaction. It takes a genuine accomplishment and makes it feel small. It takes a life that has real beauty in it and convinces you that beauty does not count because someone else has something shinier. So how do you begin winning this war inside your head? It starts with a deceptively simple but incredibly powerful shift. You stop treating every thought as truth. You learn to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them. When your mind says nobody cares about you, instead of spiraling into sadness, you pause and ask, is that actually true? Or is my mind just being dramatic right now? When your mind says everything is falling apart, you take a breath and ask, what is actually falling apart right now in this exact moment? Or is my mind projecting fear onto a future that does not exist yet? This is not about ignoring your problems or pretending life is perfect. This is about refusing to let your mind multiply your suffering beyond what reality actually requires. Life will give you enough real challenges. You do not need your own brain manufacturing extra ones. The content you feed your mind matters enormously. Think of your mind as a garden. Whatever you plant and water consistently is what grows. If you spend hours every day consuming outrage, gossip, comparison, fear, and negativity, do not be surprised when your inner world starts looking like a wasteland. But if you intentionally plant seeds of calmness, gratitude, meaningful ideas, and peaceful input, slowly, sometimes very slowly, flowers start growing in places where weeds used to dominate. The people you surround yourself with are seeds too. Some people plant anxiety in your garden every time they visit. They bring drama, criticism, pessimism, and emotional heaviness. After spending an hour with them, you feel like you ran a marathon without moving your legs. Other people plant peace. They bring warmth, encouragement, honest conversation, and a kind of calmness that makes your nervous system exhale. You need to become very intentional about who gets regular access to your garden. Protecting your mind is not a luxury. It is not something you do after everything else is handled. It is the foundation. Because a peaceful mind can navigate a difficult life with grace, but a chaotic mind can destroy even a beautiful life from the inside out. Your mind can become the safest place you know, or the most dangerous, and the difference is not luck. It is not genetics. It is not circumstance. The difference is what you repeatedly choose to feed it, day after day after day. So start choosing more carefully. Start noticing when your thoughts are dragging you into unnecessary suffering. Start catching yourself mid-spiral and gently pulling yourself back to the present moment. Start treating your mind like the precious, powerful thing it is, something worth protecting, something worth nurturing, something worth filling with thoughts that actually serve you instead of slowly destroying you. Because the moment your inner world becomes calmer, everything outside begins to look different too. Not because life changed, but because the eyes you're looking through finally cleared up. Chapter 4. You forgot how to be happy with simple things, and that is costing you everything. There is a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street in Lisbon. Nothing fancy about it. The chairs are old wooden ones with faded cushions. The menu is handwritten on a chalkboard that has been erased and rewritten so many times the ghost of yesterday's specials still shows through. The coffee is strong, simple, served in a plain white cup with a small biscuit on the saucer. I mention this cafe not because it is famous or expensive or Instagram-worthy. I mention it because I once watched a woman sit there for an entire hour, doing absolutely nothing but drinking her coffee and watching the afternoon light move slowly across the stone wall beside her. No phone, no rush, no visible anxiety. Just a woman, a cup of coffee, and the kind of stillness that most people have completely forgotten how to experience. And she looked more at peace than most millionaires I have ever seen in photographs. That image stayed with me because it captures something essential about happiness that modern life has aggressively tried to erase from our understanding. Happiness does not require spectacle. It does not require luxury. It does not require fireworks, stand-in ovations, viral moments, or dramatic life changes. Some of the deepest, most nourishing happiness available to a human being lives inside moments so quiet and so simple that most people walk right past them without even noticing. But we have been trained to walk past them, deliberately, systematically trained. From the moment you wake up, the world is screaming at you that what you have is not enough. Your phone hits you with notifications designed by psychologists to trigger anxiety and desire. Advertisements remind you 1,400 times a day that you need something you do not have. Social media shows you a version of life that is louder, shinier, faster, and more exciting than anything happening in your actual living room. And slowly, without you ever consciously agreeing to it, your brain recalibrates. It raises the bar for what counts as satisfying. It rewires your reward system until ordinary moments no longer register as meaningful. A home-cooked meal is no longer enough because you saw a 7-course tasting menu on someone's story. A walk in the park is no longer enough because someone else is hiking Patagonia. A quiet evening with your partner is no longer enough because another couple just posted their surprise trip to Santorini. Your real life, the actual life you are living right now, slowly starts feeling like a rough draft of someone else's finished masterpiece. And that is one of the cruelest tricks the modern world plays on you. It does not take your happiness away violently. It dissolves it gradually by constantly raising the standard for what happiness is supposed to look like. But here is what nobody tells you. The people constantly chasing extraordinary experiences are often the ones who struggle most to feel happy. Because the high never lasts. The dopamine spike from a new purchase fades within days. The excitement of a trip evaporates within weeks. The thrill of an achievement dissolves the moment the next goal appears on the horizon. And then the cycle restarts. Bigger, faster, more, always more, while the quiet moments that could have given them real peace sit ignored in the corner like an uninvited guest. Children understand something about happiness that most adults have tragically unlearned. A child can be captivated by a puddle, a bubble, a cardboard box, the way a shadow moves on the floor when the curtain sways. They do not need the moment to be extraordinary to be fully present in it. They do not evaluate every experience against a mental checklist of whether it is impressive enough to deserve their attention. They simply experience it fully, completely, with every cell in their tiny body. And then they grow up, and the world slowly teaches them that puddles are not impressive, cardboard boxes are for recycling, and if a moment is not worth posting, it is probably not worth having. The ability to feel wonder gets buried under layers of ambition, comparison, productivity, and the relentless pursuit of more. But that ability is not dead. It is just sleeping, and it can be woken up again. Reconnecting with simple happiness starts with one radical act: slowing down. Not permanently, not dramatically, just enough to actually be present in your own life for a few moments every day. Notice what your morning actually feels like when you stop rushing through it. The warmth of water on your hands, the smell of bread or coffee or whatever your morning ritual involves, the light coming through the window at that specific angle that only happens for a few minutes before it shifts. These are not small things. They are the actual texture of your life. They are the raw material of your experience on this planet. And when you stop dismissing them as unimportant, they start feeding you in a way that no achievement or purchase ever could. Think about the last time you laughed so hard your stomach hurt. Not a polite laugh, not a strategic laugh at your boss's joke. A real, uncontrollable, tears in your eyes laugh. When was that? If you cannot remember, that is not a scheduling problem. That is a priority problem. Somewhere along the way, you started treating joy like a luxury item and stress like a basic necessity. And that equation is upside down. Think about the last time you watched a sunset, not through a phone camera, but with your actual eyes. When the sky turned that shade of orange and pink that no filter can truly replicate, and the air cooled slightly, and for just a moment everything in the world felt briefly, impossibly okay. That moment was free. It required no subscription, no achievement, no status, no approval from anyone. It was simply there, waiting for anyone willing to be present enough to receive it. The most profound shift in happiness often does not come from adding something to your life. It comes from subtracting the noise long enough to realize that what you already have is astonishingly beautiful, if you would just stop long enough to see it. This does not mean you should stop pursuing goals or abandon ambition. Growth matters. Progress matters. Working toward a better life is a noble and worthy endeavor. But the key is learning how to enjoy the climb instead of only fixating on the summit. Because if you cannot find moments of peace on the way up, reaching the top will not magically give them to you either. You will just find a higher peak to fixate on and start climbing all over again. Gratitude is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It does not mean pretending everything is perfect. It means training your mind to hold two truths at the same time. Yes, I want more for my life. And also, there is already so much beauty in the life I have right now. Those two ideas are not enemies. They are partners. And the people who learn to hold both of them simultaneously tend to experience a kind of happiness that the pure achievement chasers rarely access. Start small, absurdly small. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, take one single breath and notice how it feels to be alive for another day. That is not cheesy motivation. That is the most radical act of presence available to you. Because one day, and this is not a threat, but simply the truth, one day that breath will be your last one. And on that day, you will not be thinking about your follower count or your quarterly targets or whether you got that promotion. You will be thinking about whether you actually lived while you had the chance. The cafe in Lisbon is not special because of its coffee. It is special because someone was wise enough to sit still and taste it. You have 1,000 Lisbons waiting inside your ordinary days. You just forgot how to sit down and notice them. So start noticing today, before the light shifts and the moment passes and another beautiful day becomes just another day you were too busy to feel. Chapter 5. You are not a machine. Stop living like one. There is a factory in the outskirts of Detroit that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The machines inside never stop. They do not take lunch breaks. They do not ask for weekends off. They do not need sunlight, fresh air, or a conversation with someone who loves them. They simply produce over and over and over until one day a part wears out, a gear cracks, a belt snaps, and the whole line shuts down. Nobody mourns the machine. They just replace the broken part and start it up again. Now here is my question, and I need you to answer it honestly. When was the last time your life felt meaningfully different from that machine? Because if you really stop and look at what most people's lives have become, the resemblance is disturbing. Wake up before your body is ready. Check your phone before your eyes have fully adjusted to the light. Rush through a morning routine that feels more like a military drill than the beginning of a new day. Commute, work, stress, perform, respond to messages, attend meetings that could have been emails, solve problems that create new problems, come home exhausted, eat something fast, scroll through a screen until your brain is too numb to think anymore, sleep poorly, wake up, repeat. Monday blurs into Tuesday, February dissolves into March. And somewhere around the 3rd or 4th year of living this way, something inside you quietly dies. Not dramatically, not with a scream or a breakdown or a visible collapse. Just a slow, silent dimming, like a candle running out of wax in an empty room where nobody is watching. You stop laughing the way you used to. You stop getting excited about things. You stop calling the friend you keep meaning to call. You stop reading books. Stop exploring. Stop wondering. Stop creating. Stop playing. You stop doing all the things that once made you feel like a living, breathing human being instead of a productivity unit with a pulse. And the worst part is that you barely notice it happening because everyone around you is doing the exact same thing. Exhaustion has become so normalized that people wear it like a badge of honor. I only slept 4 hours. I have not taken a vacation in 3 years. I'm so busy I forget to eat. People say these things with pride as if slowly destroying yourself is evidence of dedication rather than a symptom of a life that has lost its center. Let me be absolutely clear about something. Hard work matters. Discipline matters. Providing for yourself and your family matters. Building something meaningful with your time on this earth absolutely matters. Nobody is suggesting you abandon responsibility and spend your days staring at clouds. But there is a massive, critical, life-altering difference between working hard with purpose and grinding yourself into dust without ever stopping to ask why. Many people are so deep inside survival mode that they have forgotten there was ever supposed to be anything else. They have forgotten that human beings are not designed to operate under constant pressure without relief. They have forgotten that rest is not laziness, that joy is not irresponsibility, that taking an afternoon to do absolutely nothing productive is not a waste of time, but might actually be the most important thing they do all month. Your nervous system was not built for nonstop activation. It was designed to alternate between effort and recovery, between alertness and rest, between doing and simply being. When you override that rhythm for months and years at a time, the consequences do not just show up in your body. They show up in your soul. You become irritable for reasons you cannot explain. You lose patience with people you love. You feel a strange, heavy sadness that does not seem attached to any specific problem. You achieve things and feel nothing. You reach milestones and immediately move the goalpost further away because stopping feels more terrifying than continuing. This is what survival mode does. It keeps you alive while slowly making you forget what living actually feels like. I have seen people spend 20 years building a career only to arrive at the top and realize they cannot even enjoy the view. Their health is damaged. Their closest relationships have thinned to polite formalities. Their children grew up while they were answering emails in the next room. They built an empire but lost a life. And standing at the summit of everything they thought they wanted, they feel a kind of emptiness that no corner office or bank balance can fill. Because the cost of getting there was the very thing they were working for in the first place. There is a concept in Japanese culture called ikigai, a reason for being. It is the idea that every person needs something that makes waking up feel worthwhile beyond mere obligation. Not just a reason to get out of bed, but a reason to be glad that you did. For some people, that might be creating art. For others, it might be mentoring someone younger. For others, it could be cooking a beautiful meal, growing a garden, writing, exploring, learning, connecting deeply with another human being. The specific thing does not matter nearly as much as having something, anything, that feeds your spirit instead of only draining it. When life becomes exclusively about output, production, earning, and surviving, the spirit starves. And a starving spirit does not announce itself loudly. It whispers. It shows up as that vague feeling of what is the point that hits you on a Sunday night. It shows up as the inability to enjoy a holiday because your mind cannot stop thinking about work. It shows up as that strange numbness where you know you should feel happy about something, but the feeling simply will not come. So how do you step out of survival mode without abandoning your responsibilities? You start by giving yourself permission. That sounds almost ridiculously simple, but for many people it is the hardest step. Because somewhere along the way they internalize the belief that they do not deserve rest until everything is done. And everything is never done. The inbox never reaches zero. The to-do list never fully clears. There is always one more thing that needs attention. If rest requires completion, rest never comes. Permission means deciding that your well-being is not a reward for finishing everything. It is a requirement for sustaining anything. It means understanding that the best version of you, the most creative, most patient, most loving, most productive version does not emerge from exhaustion. It emerges from a person who is rested, nourished, and emotionally replenished. Start reclaiming small territories of your life from the occupation of constant busyness. Maybe that means protecting your mornings from the immediate invasion of emails and notifications. Maybe it means taking a walk after dinner without your phone. Maybe it means spending a Saturday afternoon doing something purely for pleasure, with absolutely no productive justification. Maybe it means sitting on your porch with a cup of tea and watching the sky change color for 15 minutes while your brain screams at you that you should be doing something useful. Let it scream. Sit anyway. Because those 15 minutes of deliberate peace might save you from becoming one of those people who reaches the end of their life and realizes they were so busy surviving that they never actually lived. You are not a machine. You were never meant to be one. Machines do not need sunlight. You do. Machines do not need laughter. You do. Machines do not need purpose, beauty, connection, wonder, or rest. You do. And every single day that you deny yourself these things in the name of productivity, you are not being disciplined. You are being robbed. The thief just happens to be wearing your own face. Stop waiting until you are broken to finally give yourself permission to rest. Stop waiting until your body forces you to stop before you acknowledge that you are human. Stop measuring your worth entirely by what you produce and start remembering that you are a person, not a product. Life was always meant to be more than just surviving until Friday. Chapter 6. The wound you keep ignoring is the one that keeps bleeding. There is an old house on the coast of Maine that has been standing for over 100 years. The walls are thick. The foundation is solid. From the outside, it looks strong, weathered but dignified. The kind of house that makes you think it could stand for another century without trouble. But inside, hidden behind the wallpaper in the upstairs bedroom, there is a crack. It has been there for years. At first it was small, barely visible, easy to ignore. The owners painted over it, hung a picture frame in front of it, rearranged the furniture so nobody would notice, and for a while that worked. The crack stayed hidden. The house still looked fine. But the crack never stopped growing. Slowly, invisibly, behind the wallpaper and the picture frame and the carefully arranged furniture, it spread. And one winter, during a heavy storm, the wall finally gave way. Water poured in. The damage spread to the ceiling, the floor, the room below. What could have been repaired with a small patch years ago now required tearing the entire wall apart. This is exactly what happens when people refuse to heal their emotional wounds. Most people are walking around with cracks they have been hiding for years, sometimes decades. Childhood rejection they never processed. A parent's harsh words that still echo in every moment of self-doubt. A betrayal that rewired their ability to trust. A failure that convinced them they are fundamentally not good enough. A loss they never fully grieved because they were told to be strong, keep going, move on, get over it. And so they did what homeowners did. They painted over it. They hung distractions in front of it. They rearranged their external life so nobody could see the damage inside. They got busy. They got successful. They got loud. They got funny. They became the person everyone else leans on, the strong one, the reliable one, the one who always seems to have it together. But the crack never stopped growing. This is one of the most heartbreaking patterns in human life. People spend enormous energy maintaining an exterior of strength while silently collapsing behind it. They build impressive careers on top of unhealed insecurity. They build social lives on top of buried loneliness. They build romantic relationships on top of unresolved abandonment wounds. And eventually, no matter how carefully they constructed the surface, the foundation gives way. The breakdown comes, the numbness comes, the anger that seems to come from nowhere comes, the crying in the car after a perfectly normal day comes, and people are always shocked when it happens. They say, "I do not understand. Everything was going fine." But everything was not going fine. Everything was being held together by willpower and avoidance. And willpower, no matter how strong, eventually runs out. Here is a truth that most people resist because it requires enormous courage to accept. You cannot outrun your own pain. You can distract yourself from it. You can medicate it, numb it, bury it under work, drown it in entertainment, or hide it behind a relationship. But you cannot outrun it, because wherever you go, you bring yourself with you, and yourself includes every wound you refuse to look at. The pain you avoid does not sit quietly in a corner waiting to be acknowledged. It leaks. It seeps into your reactions, your relationships, your self-image, your decisions. It shows up as unexplained anger toward people who do not deserve it. It shows up as sabotaging good things because deep down you do not believe you deserve them. It shows up as choosing partners who hurt you because pain feels more familiar than love. It shows up as constant anxiety, emotional numbness, or a general sense that something is wrong with your life even though you cannot put your finger on exactly what. Many people have been carrying pain for so long that they have confused it with their personality. They say, "I am just an anxious person. I am just someone who does not trust easily. I am just not good at being happy." But these are not permanent personality traits. These are symptoms of wounds that were never properly tended to. Beneath the anxiety is often a frightened child who never felt safe. Beneath the trust issues is often a heart that was broken by someone who was supposed to protect it. Beneath the inability to feel happiness is often a mountain of grief that was never given permission to exist. Healing is not a single dramatic moment. It is not a breakthrough that happens on a Tuesday afternoon and fixes everything by Wednesday morning. Healing is slow, messy, non-linear work. Some days you feel like you are making enormous progress. Other days you feel like you are right back where you started. Some weeks the wound barely crosses your mind. Other weeks it throbs like it happened yesterday. This is normal. This is what real healing looks like. Not a straight line from broken to fixed, but a winding, sometimes frustrating, always worthwhile path toward becoming someone who can finally carry their own story without being crushed by it. One of the most difficult parts of healing is forgiveness. And I do not just mean forgiving others, I mean forgiving yourself. Many people are imprisoned by guilt over things they did years ago, mistakes they made, people they hurt, opportunities they wasted, versions of themselves they are ashamed of, and they punish themselves relentlessly. Every single day they replay the evidence against themselves, deliver the verdict, and carry out the sentence. Guilty, 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 over and over until self-hatred becomes the background noise of their entire existence. But you need to hear something clearly. You were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time. That does not excuse everything. It does not mean consequences do not exist, but it means you are allowed to stop executing yourself for being a flawed human in a world that never gave you a manual. Self-compassion is not weakness. It is not letting yourself off the hook. It is the recognition that growth requires grace. A garden does not grow faster if you scream at the seeds. A child does not learn better if you punish every mistake with cruelty. And your wounded heart does not heal faster if you attack it every single day for being wounded in the first place. Another essential piece of healing that many people overlook is the willingness to release what keeps reopening the wound. Sometimes the pain persists, not because the original injury was so severe, but because you remain in an environment that keeps re-injuring you. The toxic friendship you refuse to leave, the family dynamic you keep returning to despite knowing it damages you every time, the habit you use to cope that actually deepens the wound instead of closing it, the relationship where you keep hoping the person who hurt you will magically become the person who heals you. Healing sometimes requires subtraction before addition. Before you can build a peaceful inner world, you may need to remove the things that keep demolishing it, and that removal can be painful. Walking away from familiar pain is sometimes harder than walking toward unfamiliar peace, because at least the pain is predictable, but predictable suffering is still suffering, and you deserve more than a life spent managing damage that you have the power to finally repair. Nobody else can do this work for you. Friends can support you. Partners can love you. Therapists can guide you. But at the end of the day, healing is an inside job. It is the private, courageous act of turning toward the parts of yourself you have been running from and saying, "I see you. I know you are hurting, and I am finally ready to take care of you instead of pretending you do not exist." The people who eventually find deep, lasting happiness are rarely the people who never experienced pain. They are almost always the people who experienced pain, sometimes terrible pain, and made the brave decision to heal instead of hiding. They chose growth over bitterness. They chose vulnerability over armor. They chose the difficult, unglamorous, deeply rewarding work of putting themselves back together piece by piece. And slowly, something remarkable happened. The crack in the wall stopped spreading. The storm stopped leaking in. The house started feeling warm again, not because life became perfect, but because someone finally cared enough to stop hiding the damage and start repairing it. That someone can be you, starting today, starting now, not because healing is easy, but because carrying unhealed pain for the rest of your life is infinitely harder. The wound you keep ignoring is the one that keeps bleeding, and no amount of wallpaper, picture frames, or rearranged furniture will ever stop it. Only your willingness to finally face it will. Chapter 7. The clock is not waiting for you to be ready. There is a cemetery in Buenos Aires that stretches across several city blocks. It is filled with ornate stone tombs, marble angels, and iron gates covered in ivy. Thousands of people rest there. Some were rich, some were poor, some were famous, some were forgotten before the flowers on their grave had time to wilt. But here is the thing that struck me the most when I first read about visitors walking through that place. Every single person buried there once had a tomorrow they were counting on. They had plans they assumed they would get to eventually, conversations they kept meaning to have, apologies they plan to make next week, dreams they swore they would pursue after things settled down, moments of joy they promised themselves they would savor as soon as life became a little less hectic. And then one day, without warning or negotiation, their collection of tomorrows simply ran out. I am not telling you this to be morbid. I am telling you this because it is the single most important context for everything we have talked about so far. Time is not a renewable resource. You cannot earn more of it. You cannot negotiate an extension. You cannot pause it while you figure things out. The clock that started ticking the moment you took your first breath has never once stopped, not for a second, and it will not stop for you now no matter how many plans you have left on your list. And yet, most people live as though time is infinite. They delay happiness the way they delay dentist appointments, always pushing it to next month, next quarter, next year, next chapter. They tell themselves there will be a better time, a more convenient season, a less stressful window. They treat peace like something that belongs in retirement, as if the universe has guaranteed them a specific number of years, and the good ones are all scheduled for the end. But life does not work on a schedule you approved. People lose jobs they thought were permanent. Relationships end without a final chapter. Health changes overnight. The person you assumed would always be there stops being there. The city you grew up in becomes unrecognizable. The body you took for granted starts sending warning signals you can no longer ignore. And suddenly, someday feels a lot less guaranteed than it did yesterday. This is why creating happiness daily is not optional. It is urgent. Not the frantic, panicky kind of urgency that adds more stress to your life. The quiet, grounded urgency of someone who understands that today is not a rehearsal. Today is the actual performance, and you are either showing up for it fully or sitting in the audience of your own life watching it happen to someone else. Many people confuse creating daily happiness with some grand overhaul of their entire existence. They think it means quitting their job, moving to Bali, or transforming into a completely different person by next Tuesday. But that is not what this is about. Creating happiness daily is about small, intentional choices that slowly shift the emotional temperature of your life from chronic winter to something warmer. It is the choice to start your morning with 3 minutes of silence instead of immediately drowning in notifications. It is the choice to eat a meal slowly and actually taste it instead of inhaling it over your keyboard while answering emails. It is the choice to tell someone you love them today instead of assuming they already know. It is the choice to go outside and feel the air on your skin for 10 minutes instead of spending your entire lunch break scrolling through someone else's curated life. None of these things are dramatic. None of them will trend on social media. But stacked together day after day, week after week, they fundamentally change the way your life feels from the inside. Think about it this way. A single drop of water means nothing to a stone, but thousands of drops falling on the same spot over months and years will carve a hole straight through solid rock. Your daily choices work the same way. Each one seems insignificant on its own, but their cumulative power is almost unimaginable. The person who spends 10 minutes every morning in gratitude and 10 minutes every evening in quiet reflection will, over the course of a year, have spent over 120 hours intentionally cultivating peace. That is not nothing. That is a life being reshaped from the inside out, one drop at a time. But the reverse is also true. The person who spends every morning in anxiety and every evening in mindless consumption is also carving something into the stone of their life. They are carving stress, dissatisfaction, numbness, and disconnection. And after enough years, those grooves become so deep that climbing out of them feels almost impossible. You are always building something with your daily habits. The only question is whether you are building a life that nourishes you or one that slowly drains you. Many people also fall into the trap of believing happiness must always look exciting. They associate being happy with adrenaline, celebration, big events, peak experiences. And when those things are absent, they assume happiness must also be absent. But some of the most genuinely happy moments in human existence are breathtakingly quiet. The feeling of climbing into clean sheets when your body is truly tired. The sound of rain against a window when you have nowhere to be. Watching someone you love laugh at something silly and feeling your chest expand with a warmth that has no name. Finishing a long day and sitting down with a cup of something warm and realizing that right now, in this specific second, nothing is wrong. Not one single thing is actively wrong. These moments will never make a highlight reel. They will never get 1,000 likes. But they are the actual fabric of a happy life. And if you keep dismissing them because they are not loud enough, you will spend your entire existence chasing fireworks while ignoring the steady, beautiful glow of the candle that was already lit right beside you. There is also something important to understand about the relationship between happiness and environment. Your emotional state does not exist in a vacuum. It is constantly being shaped by the invisible forces around you, the news you consume in the morning, the tone of the group chat you check at lunch, the energy of the people you eat dinner with, the last thing you look at before you close your eyes at night. All of these inputs are either depositing peace into your emotional account or withdrawing it. Most people have never audited these inputs. They have never stopped to ask, is the way I spend my average Tuesday actually supporting the kind of life I say I want? They want peace, but consume outrage for 2 hours every evening. They want calm, but surround themselves with people who thrive on drama. They want emotional stability, but never once create space in their day for stillness. You cannot plant tomatoes and expect roses. The seeds you plant daily are the life you harvest eventually. And if your daily inputs are overwhelmingly negative, stressful, comparative, and chaotic, no amount of weekend self-care will undo the damage. Protecting your peace is not passive. It is one of the most active, courageous things you can do. It means saying no to conversations that drain you. It means muting accounts that make you feel inadequate. It means leaving rooms, physical or digital, where negativity is the main currency. It means disappointing people who benefit from your inability to set boundaries. It means choosing yourself not out of selfishness, but out of the understanding that you cannot pour from a cup that has been shattered by neglect. Not every fight is yours. Not every opinion matters. Not every crisis requires your emotional involvement. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your happiness is simply refuse to participate in things that consistently steal your peace. That is not avoidance. That is wisdom. One more truth before we move on, and this one might be the hardest to hear. Nobody is coming to build your happiness for you. not your partner, not your parents, not your boss, not the universe, not some future version of yourself who has magically figured everything out. The person responsible for creating happiness in your life is the same person reading these words right now. That might sound lonely at first, but it is actually the most liberating realization you will ever have, because it means your happiness is not hostage to anyone else's behavior. It is not dependent on circumstances you cannot control. It is not delayed until some external condition is finally met. Your happiness is yours to build today with the tools you already have and the life you are already living. So stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop postponing peace until the storm passes. Start building your happiness now, one small choice at a time, one protected morning at a time, one grateful thought at a time, one quiet evening at a time, because the clock is not waiting for you to be ready. It never has been. And the only moment you are guaranteed is this one. Use it wisely. Use it gently. Use it before it disappears into the same silent collection as all the moments that came before. Chapter 8. Your mind is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. There is an old parable about a man who buys a magnificent horse. The horse is strong, fast, and powerful, the finest animal in the village. But the man never learns how to ride it. He never trains it. He never establishes who is in control. So the horse runs wherever it wants, whenever it wants. Some days it charges through markets, knocking over fruit stands and terrifying children. Other days it bolts into the forest and gets lost for hours. The man clings to the saddle, exhausted, bruised, terrified, being dragged through a life he never chose by an animal he never learned to guide. His neighbors watch and shake their heads. That man has the finest horse in the village, they say, if only he knew how to ride it. Your mind is that horse. It is powerful beyond measure. It can solve impossible problems, create breathtaking art, imagine futures that do not yet exist, and connect ideas that nobody else has ever connected. The human mind is the most sophisticated instrument in the known universe, and yet, for most people, it is completely untamed. It runs wild. It goes wherever it wants. And the person it belongs to spends their entire life being dragged behind it, clinging desperately, wondering why they feel so exhausted all the time. This is what overthinking really is. It is not a sign of intelligence. It is not proof that you care deeply. It is not evidence that you are more thoughtful or more responsible than other people. Overthinking is simply what happens when a powerful mind operates without a rider. It generates thought after thought after thought, not because those thoughts are useful, but because generating thoughts is what an unguided mind does. Like a horse running, not because it has a destination, but because nobody told it to stop. And the damage it causes is staggering. Think about what happens inside your head on an ordinary day. You wake up, and before your feet touch the floor, your mind has already started its morning broadcast. Today is going to be stressful. You have too much to do. You probably should not have said that thing yesterday. What if they took it the wrong way? Why did you eat that last night? You are falling behind. Everyone else seems to have their life together. What is wrong with you? None of this was requested. You did not sit down and consciously decide to think these thoughts. They just appeared, uninvited, like a neighbor who walks into your kitchen at 6 in the morning and starts criticizing everything in your refrigerator. And instead of telling that neighbor to leave, most people just nod along. Yeah, you are probably right. I am a mess. Thanks for pointing that out before I even had coffee. This is the fundamental problem. Most people have never questioned the authority of their own thoughts. They assume that if a thought appears in their head, it must be true. It must be important. It must deserve their full emotional response. But thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are suggestions. Some of them are brilliant. Some of them are useful. And a staggering number of them are absolute nonsense generated by a tired, overstimulated, anxiety-prone brain that has been consuming too much caffeine and too many news headlines. Learning to separate yourself from your thoughts is one of the most transformative skills a human being can develop. It is the difference between I am worthless and I am having the thought that I am worthless. That distinction might seem small on paper, but in practice, it is the difference between drowning and watching the waves from the shore. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices your thoughts. And the moment you truly understand this, the entire game changes. Overthinking has a favorite weapon, and it uses it constantly. That weapon is the illusion of productivity. Your mind convinces you that worrying is the same as preparing, that analyzing is the same as solving, that mentally rehearsing every possible catastrophe is somehow protecting you from danger. But it is not. Worrying about a problem and working on a problem are two completely different activities. One depletes you. The other empowers you. And your mind, left unattended, will choose the depleting one every single time because worry requires no action, only emotional fuel, and your mind has an unlimited supply of that. Consider how much of what you worried about last year actually happened. Not the vague feeling of worry, but the specific catastrophes your mind predicted. The job loss it was certain was coming. The relationship disaster it rehearsed in vivid detail. The health crisis it diagnosed at 3 a.m. based on a Google search and a mild headache. How many of those nightmares actually materialized? Studies consistently suggest that the vast majority of what people worry about never happens. Your mind spent hours, days, sometimes weeks constructing elaborate disaster scenarios that reality never delivered, and during all that time, while your brain was busy building theaters of imaginary suffering, your actual life was happening. Beautiful, unrepeatable moments were passing by unnoticed because your attention was locked inside a horror movie that was never even playing in real life. The past is another territory where the untamed mind loves to wander. It replays arguments you had 7 years ago and generates new, better responses you wish you had given. It revisits embarrassing moments from high school and makes you cringe as if they happened this morning. It keeps a meticulous archive of every failure, every rejection, every mistake, and pulls files from that archive at the worst possible moments, usually when you are trying to fall asleep or attempting to feel good about something you just accomplished. You cannot change a single second of the past. Not one word, not one decision, not one moment. And yet your mind treats the past like a crime scene it needs to revisit over and over, searching for evidence that was already collected years ago. Every revisit costs you energy. Every replay costs you peace. And the past never changes no matter how many times you go back. Social media has added rocket fuel to the overthinking epidemic. Your mind now has access to an infinite comparison database, updated in real time, available 24 hours a day. Before social media, your comparison pool was limited to the people in your immediate environment. Now, your mind can compare you to 8 billion people simultaneously and find you lacking in every category imaginable. Someone your age is more successful. Someone your age is more attractive. Someone your age has a better relationship, a better body, a better apartment, a better morning routine, a better dog, a better avocado toast. Your mind scrolls and compares, and each comparison deposits a small amount of poison into your emotional system. Individually, each dose is survivable, but cumulatively, over months and years, it creates a chronic low-grade misery that many people cannot even identify because it has become their baseline emotional state. So, how do you learn to ride the horse instead of being dragged by it? It begins with silence, real silence, not the absence of sound, but the intentional creation of space between you and your thoughts. Prayer, meditation, deep breathing, journaling, walking in nature without headphones, sitting on your front steps at dawn, watching the sky lighten. These are not luxuries. These are training sessions. Every time you sit in silence and observe your thoughts without chasing them, you are strengthening the muscle of awareness. You are teaching yourself that thoughts can exist without being obeyed, that fear can arise without being followed, that a painful memory can surface without triggering a full emotional spiral. This takes time. The mind does not become tame overnight any more than a wild horse does. There will be days when you sit in silence and your thoughts are so loud you want to scream. That is fine. That is normal. That is actually progress. Because before you started practicing, those thoughts were just as loud, but you did not even notice them. Awareness of the noise is the first step toward reducing it. It also requires becoming intentional about your mental diet. If you spend 2 hours every night consuming content designed to outrage, frighten, or depress you, your mind will be restless. If you spend your mornings in comparison and your evenings in regret, your mind will be exhausted. What you feed the horse determines where it runs. Feed it chaos, and it will drag you through chaos. Feed it calmness, and it will carry you toward peace. There is a quiet revolution available to every person reading this. It does not require money, status, or special circumstances. It simply requires the decision to stop letting your mind run your life into the ground, to finally grab the reins, to learn, slowly and imperfectly, how to guide this incredible, powerful, beautiful instrument toward peace instead of allowing it to gallop endlessly toward panic. A peaceful mind is not an empty mind. It is not a mind that never worries or never fears. A peaceful mind is a mind whose owner has learned to sit comfortably in the saddle, to notice when the horse starts drifting toward the cliff and gently steer it back toward the meadow, to feel fear without being consumed by it, to acknowledge pain without being defined by it, to think without being imprisoned by thinking. The horse is yours. It always has been. The question is whether you will keep being dragged by it or finally learn to ride. And the day you choose to ride, genuinely ride, is the day your life begins feeling like your own again. Bölum, Besh, Chapter, Dokuz, Veonarta, Conclusion, Chapter 9. The happiness you have been searching for was never out there. There is a story, possibly apocryphal but deeply true in its meaning, about a fisherman who lived in a small coastal village in southern Greece. Every morning he would take his small wooden boat out before sunrise, catch enough fish to feed his family, and sell a few at the local market. Then spend the rest of his day mending nets in the shade, playing with his children on the beach, napping in a hammock during the hottest hours, and sharing wine with his wife on their terrace while the sun melted into the Aegean Sea. One afternoon, a businessman from Athens visited the village. He watched the fishermen return from the sea, sell his modest catch, and sit down under an olive tree with a piece of bread and a block of cheese, looking perfectly content. The businessman approached him. "You know," he said, "if you fished longer hours and caught more, you could save money and buy a bigger boat. With a bigger boat, you could catch even more. Eventually, you could own a fleet. Then you could open a processing facility. Then you could export. In 15 or 20 years, you could build an empire." The fisherman looked at him calmly. "And then what?" Then the businessman said, grinning, "You could finally retire, move to a small coastal village, fish a little in the mornings, spend time with your family, relax in the evenings." The fisherman smiled and took another bite of his bread. "That is what I am already doing," he said. "This story has been told in many versions across many cultures, and the reason it endures is because it captures something that most people feel in their bones but refuse to accept with their minds. The happiness they are chasing, the peace they have been working toward, the life they have been postponing everything for, often looks remarkably similar to something they already have access to right now. But accepting that feels almost dangerous in a world that has built its entire economic and social machinery on the principle that you do not have enough, you are not enough, and you will not be enough until you acquire, achieve, or become something more. From the moment you entered the school system as a child, you were placed on a ladder. Your value was measured by how high you could climb. Grades, rankings, awards, admissions, job titles, salaries, possessions, followers, status symbols. Every rung you reached revealed another rung above it, and the implicit message was always the same. You are not there yet. Keep climbing. Happiness is at the top. So you climbed. You climbed through school. You climbed through university. You climbed through your early career. You climbed through relationship milestones. You climbed through financial targets. And every time you reached a new rung, you expected to feel that warm, permanent glow of satisfaction that was promised to you. But instead, you felt a brief spark followed by a familiar emptiness, and then, almost immediately, the anxious awareness of the next rung above you. This is not a failure of willpower or ambition. This is a design flaw in the entire model of happiness that modern society is built upon. The model says happiness is a destination. Reach it, and you will feel complete. But the destination keeps moving. The goalpost shifts the moment you arrive. The bar rises the second you clear it, and the person who tied their entire emotional existence to reaching the next level finds themselves running on a treadmill that was never designed to stop. Money is perhaps the most seductive version of this illusion, and to be clear, money matters. Financial security matters. Not having to worry about rent or food or medical bills creates a foundation of stability that genuinely improves quality of life. Nobody should romanticize poverty or pretend that financial stress does not cause real suffering. It absolutely does. But there is a threshold, and research has consistently pointed to this, beyond which additional money produces rapidly diminishing returns on happiness. Once your basic needs are met and a reasonable cushion of security exists, the next 100,000 does not produce the same emotional lift as the first 100,000 did. The fifth luxury vacation does not feel like the first one. The second sports car does not produce the same thrill as the first. The bigger house creates bigger maintenance, bigger bills, and often bigger emptiness, echoing through rooms nobody uses. This is not because rich people are ungrateful. It is because money was never capable of doing what people hoped it would do. It can solve financial problems brilliantly. It cannot solve identity problems, loneliness problems, purpose problems, or the deep existential ache of wondering whether your life actually means anything. Those problems require a completely different currency, one that cannot be deposited in any bank. Relationships carry a similar burden of misplaced expectation. Many people spend years believing that the right person will complete them, that love will fill the void, that once they find their person, the loneliness, the self-doubt, the quiet desperation will finally dissolve like fog in morning sunlight. And sometimes, in the early intoxicating days of a new relationship, it genuinely feels that way. The world seems brighter, the future seems possible, the emptiness seems to recede. But what is actually happening is not completion. It is distraction. The emptiness did not leave. It simply went quiet for a while because your attention was occupied by something thrilling and new. And when the novelty settles, when the relationship enters its everyday phase of grocery lists and disagreements about laundry and silent Tuesday evenings on the couch, the emptiness resurfaces. Not because the relationship failed, but because the relationship was never designed to fill a hole that only you can fill. The same pattern applies to status, attention, validation, followers, career achievements, physical appearance, and virtually every other external thing humans chase in the hope of finally feeling whole. A person gets promoted and feels important for a week before the pressure of the new role replaces the excitement. A person gains thousands of followers and feels validated for a day before the anxiety of maintaining relevance takes over. A person changes their appearance and feels attractive for a month before the old insecurities find new targets. The external thing delivers a temporary hit of satisfaction, and then the baseline returns. Always the baseline returns. So if happiness is not reliably found in money, relationships, status, achievement, or external validation, where exactly does it live? It lives in a place most people rarely visit. It lives inside the relationship you have with yourself. Not the curated version of yourself that you present to the world, not the idealized version you compare to everyone else. The actual, unfiltered, imperfect, complicated, sometimes messy, sometimes magnificent person you are when nobody else is in the room. Most people have a terrible relationship with that person. They avoid being alone with them. They criticize them relentlessly. They hold them to standards they would never impose on a friend. They speak to them with a harshness they would never direct at someone they loved. They know everything about that person's flaws and almost nothing about their strengths. They have memorized every failure and forgotten every act of courage. And then they wonder why they feel empty inside. Inner peace begins with befriending yourself. Genuinely befriending yourself the way you would befriend someone you deeply cared about. It means learning to sit in your own company without needing to escape. It means speaking to yourself with patience instead of contempt. It means forgiving yourself for being human in a world that constantly demands perfection. It means celebrating small victories instead of only cataloging defeats. It means looking in the mirror and acknowledging that the person looking back has survived every single difficult day so far, and that alone is worthy of enormous respect. When you build that kind of relationship with yourself, something extraordinary happens to your experience of life. External circumstances begin losing their tyrannical grip on your emotions. A bad day at work no longer destroys your sense of self-worth, because your self-worth is no longer built on your job performance. A rejection no longer shatters you, because your identity is no longer constructed from other people's acceptance. A failure no longer defines you, because you finally understand that what you do is not the same as who you are. This is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to feel okay regardless of what happens. The freedom to experience joy that does not depend on perfect conditions. The freedom to navigate loss without losing yourself in the process. The freedom to hold your own hand in the dark and know deeply and unshakably that you are enough. The fisherman in Greece was not happy because he lacked ambition. He was happy because he had already located his peace inside himself. The boat, the fish, the olive tree, the wine on the terrace, these were beautiful additions to a life that was already complete. They were color added to a canvas that already had a foundation. Take them away, and the man would still know who he is. Give him a yacht and a mansion, and he would still be the same man, sitting under a bigger tree, eating better cheese, but drawing from the same well of inner peace. The pursuit of external things is not the problem. The problem is pursuing external things while neglecting the internal world that determines whether you can actually enjoy them when they arrive. A person with no inner peace will experience luxury the same way a person with a broken tongue experiences a gourmet meal. Everything they ever wanted is right in front of them, and they cannot taste a thing. So stop searching, not for goals, not for growth, not for a better life. Keep pursuing those things if they matter to you, but stop searching for happiness as though it is hiding behind the next achievement, the next relationship, the next milestone. It is not there. It was never there. It has always been here, inside you, waiting patiently for you to stop running long enough to notice. Chapter 10. Your happiness is a house. You build one brick at a time. There is an old bricklayer's saying that goes something like this: a wall is not built by thinking about walls. A wall is built by laying one brick as perfectly as you can, and then laying another one right beside it. Happiness works exactly the same way. Most people think of happiness as a mansion that appears fully constructed the moment certain conditions in their life are met. They imagine waking up one morning after getting the promotion or paying off the debt or finding the partner or reaching the goal and suddenly finding themselves living inside this magnificent structure called a happy life. As if happiness were a building that someone else constructs for you while you are busy meeting prerequisites. But happiness is not a mansion that appears. Happiness is a house you build yourself, one brick at a time, one day at a time, one choice at a time. And the bricks are not extraordinary. They are mundane. They are ordinary. They are so simple that most people overlook them entirely while searching for something grander. A brick is the decision to drink your morning tea slowly instead of gulping it while standing over the sink. A brick is the conversation you have with your daughter, where you actually put your phone down and look into her eyes. A brick is the boundary you set with the colleague who drains your energy every time they corner you in the break room. A brick is the 10 minutes of silence you carve out before bed instead of scrolling until your eyes burn. A brick is the walk you take after dinner, where you notice the way the streetlights turn the wet pavement into something that almost looks like a painting. A brick is the words you choose when you talk to yourself after making a mistake. Not "you are so stupid," but "that was hard," but you will figure it out. Each brick alone seems almost laughably insignificant. What difference can one mindful cup of tea possibly make against the enormous weight of modern anxiety? What can 10 minutes of silence do against years of accumulated stress? How can a single walk around the block compete with the crushing momentum of a life that feels like it is running away from you? But that is the beautiful deception of small daily choices. Their power is invisible on any given day. You lay a brick today and nothing seems different. You lay another brick tomorrow and still nothing changes. A week of bricks and your life looks exactly the same from the outside. But 6 months of bricks, a year of bricks, 3 years of consistent, intentional, unglamorous bricklaying. You look up one day and there is a house standing where there used to be nothing but dirt and weeds, and you built it, not in a single heroic moment, not through some dramatic transformation, but through the radical, rebellious, deeply courageous act of choosing peace repeatedly in a world that profits from your chaos. The reverse is also true, and this is where most people find themselves without ever understanding how they got there. You can also demolish a house one brick at a time. Every morning that begins with anxiety-inducing content is a brick removed. Every evening spent in mindless comparison is a brick removed. Every cruel word you direct at yourself is a brick removed. Every boundary you fail to set is a brick removed. Every night of sleep sacrificed to worry is a brick removed. Every relationship you maintain, despite knowing it, poisons your peace is a brick removed. And just like building, the demolition is invisible on any given day. One skipped night of sleep does not collapse the house. 1 hour of doom scrolling does not bring the walls down. But years of these small choices accumulate into something devastating. You wake up one morning and feel the cold wind blowing through the place where walls used to be, and you genuinely cannot understand when or how the house fell apart. It fell apart the same way it was supposed to be built, one brick at a time. This is why daily habits matter so profoundly, not because any individual habit is revolutionary, but because habits are bricks, and bricks become walls, and walls become rooms, and rooms become a home. The question is never whether you are building. You are always building. The question is what you are building. Let me get specific, because this matters too much for vague advice. Your morning matters more than you think. The first 30 to 60 minutes of your day set the emotional thermostat for everything that follows. If you begin by immediately submerging your mind in notifications, news, obligations, and other people's emergencies, you are essentially handing the first chapter of your day to the world and saying, "Here, you write it." Whatever you decide for me, I will accept. But if you protect that first window, even a small one, and fill it with something intentional, silence, gratitude, movement, prayer, deep breathing, writing, or simply sitting with a cup of something warm and watching the day begin, you take authorship of your morning back. You lay the first brick of the day with your own hands instead of letting the world throw one at your head. The people you spend the most time with are also bricks. Every single person in your regular orbit is either adding to your house or subtracting from it. Some people leave you feeling energized, inspired, supported, and at peace. Those people are master bricklayers. Keep them close. Protect those relationships. Water them with attention and gratitude. Other people leave you feeling drained, anxious, small, or emotionally hungover. After an hour in their presence, you feel like you need 3 hours of recovery. Those people are not necessarily bad people, but they are removing bricks from your house every time they visit, and at some point, you must decide whether your loyalty to a draining relationship is worth more than the structural integrity of your peace. That decision is rarely easy, but it is almost always necessary. The content you consume daily is another category of brick that most people never audit. The average person spends several hours a day absorbing information, stories, images, opinions, and emotional stimuli through screens. That is several hours of bricks being laid or removed, and most people have no idea which one is happening because they never stop to examine what they are actually consuming. If your daily media diet consists primarily of outrage, scandal, comparison, fear, and the curated perfection of strangers, your mind is receiving hours of demolition work disguised as entertainment. If it consists of material that challenges you to grow, calms your nervous system, expands your understanding, or simply makes you laugh without leaving a residue of negativity, those are hours of construction. You do not have to become a monk. You do not have to delete every app and move to a cabin in the woods. But you do have to become honest with yourself about what your daily inputs are actually doing to your emotional architecture, because the house you are trying to build cannot withstand constant demolition from the inside. Gratitude, as simple as the concept sounds, is one of the most powerful bricks available to you. The human mind has a built-in negativity bias. It is wired to notice threats, problems, and deficiencies far more readily than blessings, beauty, and abundance. This was useful when threats included being eaten by predators. It is considerably less useful when the biggest threat in your day is a passive-aggressive email from a coworker. Gratitude manually overrides the negativity bias. It forces the mind to notice what is going right, instead of exclusively cataloging what is going wrong. And the effect is not merely psychological. Research has consistently shown that regular gratitude practice physically changes the brain, strengthening neural pathways associated with positive emotion, resilience, and emotional regulation. But gratitude only works if it is practiced, not just understood intellectually. Knowing that gratitude is beneficial is like knowing that exercise builds muscle. The knowledge alone changes nothing. You have to actually do it. Daily, consistently. Even on days when it feels forced. Even on days when your mind insists that there is nothing to be grateful for. Especially on those days. Because Those are the days when the muscle needs training the most. Purpose is another essential brick, and one that many people neglect without realizing how much emptiness it creates. A life without purpose does not necessarily look dramatic from the outside. A person without purpose can still go to work, pay bills, socialize, and function perfectly well in the eyes of the world. But inside, there is a hollowness that nothing else quite fills. Purpose does not have to mean changing the world or finding your grand cosmic mission. Purpose can be small and personal and beautifully specific. It can be raising your children with more patience than you were raised with. It can be creating something beautiful, a song, a garden, a business, a meal, a piece of writing. It can be mentoring someone younger. It can be learning something new every year for the rest of your life. Purpose simply means having a reason to get out of bed that goes beyond obligation. It means the difference between I have to wake up and I get to wake up. Balance is the final brick I want to talk about, and it might be the most overlooked of all. Many people build their house with only one type of brick: all work, all ambition, all productivity. And while that creates an impressive structure from the outside, it is a house with no windows, no ventilation, no natural light. It is a fortress, not a home. A real home needs variety. It needs rooms for effort and rooms for rest, spaces for discipline and spaces for play, walls that protect and windows that let light in. A life that is only pressure will eventually crush the person living inside it. A life that is only comfort will eventually bore them. The art is in finding a rhythm that honors both hard work and genuine rest, ambition and appreciation, building the future and savoring the present. The people who report the deepest, most sustained happiness are rarely the people who achieve the most extraordinary things. They are the people who built the most balanced inner lives. They worked hard, but rested well. They pursued goals, but appreciated the journey. They loved deeply, but maintained their own identity. They faced difficulties, but protected their peace through those difficulties. Their happiness was not a single event or a peak experience. It was a home they lived in every day, built quietly, brick by brick, through choices so small that nobody else even noticed. But they noticed, and that was enough. Conclusion: the only life you are guaranteed is the one happening right now. Let me leave you with something that has stayed with me for a very long time. There is a thought experiment that goes like this. Imagine you are 90 years old. Your body is tired. Your hair is white. Your hands shake slightly when you hold your morning cup. You are sitting in a chair by a window, looking out at a street you have watched change over many decades. Cars that used to be loud are now quiet. Trees that used to be small are now enormous. Children who used to run past your house now walk slowly with children of their own. And from that chair, you look back on your life. Not at the resume, not at the achievements, not at the numbers in the bank account or the titles on the business card. You look back at the emotional experience of your life, how it felt to live it, how it felt to be you, day after day, year after year. Did you feel alive? Did you laugh enough? Did you rest when your body begged you to? Did you sit in silence and feel peace instead of always running toward something louder? Did you tell the people you loved how much they meant to you, not in a eulogy, but over breakfast? Did you notice the seasons changing? Did you taste your food? Did you forgive yourself for the things you cannot change? Did you ever, even once, sit still long enough to realize that the life you already had was quietly, stubbornly, breathtakingly beautiful? Or did you spend most of it waiting, waiting for conditions to improve, waiting for the stress to pass, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to hand you the permission slip you never actually needed? This thought experiment is valuable not because it predicts the future, but because it reveals the present. The regrets of that 90-year-old version of you are not hypothetical. They are warnings. They are messages sent backward through time from a version of yourself that already knows how the story ends and is begging you to change the middle chapters while you still can. And the message is devastatingly simple. Stop waiting. Start feeling. Start living. Start building. Not tomorrow. Not after the next milestone. Now. Everything you learned in this video points to the same conclusion, approached from different angles, but arriving at the same undeniable center of gravity. Happiness is not a destination. It is a practice. It is not a reward for suffering long enough. It is a right you were born with that nobody can take away unless you hand it over voluntarily. And most people hand it over without even realizing they did. They hand it to their jobs, their relationships, their insecurities, their overthinking, their comparison habits, their unhealed wounds, their impossible standards, their addiction to external validation. They distribute pieces of their peace to so many outside forces that by the time they look inside themselves, there is almost nothing left. But almost nothing is not nothing. And that is the hope buried at the center of everything I have shared with you today. No matter how long you have been running from yourself, you can stop today. No matter how many years you have spent building your happiness on foundations that kept crumbling, you can start laying new bricks on solid ground right now. No matter how deeply the wound has spread behind the wallpaper, you can begin repairing it this evening. No matter how wild and untamed your mind has become, you can pick up the reins and start learning to ride this afternoon. You are not too old. You are not too damaged. You are not too far gone. You are not too busy, too broken, too ordinary, or too late. You are exactly where you need to be to begin. And beginning is the only thing that has ever been required of you. The fisherman in Greece did not have a secret. The woman in the Lisbon cafe did not know something you do not know. The people who seemed genuinely at peace with their lives did not receive an instruction manual that was withheld from you. They simply made a choice that is available to every single human being on this planet. They chose to stop outsourcing their happiness and start growing it from the inside. They chose to stop waiting for the garden to be perfect and instead sat down and smelled the flowers that were already blooming. They chose to take the remote control back. They chose to stop letting the horse drag them through the mud and finally learn to ride. They chose to stop ignoring the crack in the wall and start repairing it with their own hands. They chose to lay one brick today, and then another one tomorrow, and then another one the day after that. That is all happiness has ever asked of anyone. Not perfection, not extraordinary circumstances, not unlimited resources or unlimited time, just the willingness to begin and the patience to continue and the wisdom to understand that the most beautiful houses in the world were all built the same way, slowly, intentionally, one imperfect brick at a time. So here is what I want you to do right now. Not tomorrow, not after you finish scrolling, not after you check your notifications. Right now. Close your eyes for 10 seconds. Take one breath that is deeper than any breath you have taken all day. And when you open your eyes, look at the life around you as if you are seeing it for the very first time. The room you are in, the air you are breathing, the heartbeat in your chest that has been faithfully keeping you alive this entire time without ever once asking for recognition or gratitude. That heartbeat is your proof that the story is not over, that you still have time, that today, this actual today, can be the day you stop surviving and start truly living. Because the people who die without ever feeling real happiness are not the people who lacked opportunity. They are the people who kept waiting for a better moment that was never coming. And you, right now, in this very second, have the one thing they would give anything to get back. Time. Do not waste it waiting. The happiness you have been searching for your entire life was never out there somewhere. It was always right here, inside you, patient, quiet, ready. All it ever needed was for you to finally sit still long enough to notice.